all the way. Well, good morning and welcome to Frankly Speaking here on WYDC TV Big Fox. I'm your host, Frank Acom, and we are broadcasting live from the Hesselson studio here on Market Street in Corning, and we have a lot to cover this morning. We're going to start with viewer comments. We received quite a few viewer comments after yesterday's broadcast, so we're going to get to those here in just a little bit. We have updates on Trump's cabinet, Trump's nominations, I should say. We also have quite a few things here if you've not heard. Morning Joe went and met with President-elect Donald Trump, and the backlash for the Morning Joe crew has been pretty fierce. We'll take a look at that as a broader picture of what is happening in the media. But first, as I said, viewer comments. This one is directed specifically to Ken. Ken yesterday told us how he was able to sit through things like the DNC, watch Meet the Press over the weekend. And the viewer asked how he could do it. Well, the viewer responded back, "Thanks, Ken. I'll replace my brown paper bag with the oxygen tank and see if that helps for the hyperventilating." So thank you, Ken, for that. Next up, I heard that Obama moved over 1,000 people from his administration to permanent jobs under Trump to control him. I think Trump should replace them along with the ones that are switched over by Biden or Harris. Otherwise, he won't be able to do anything. One of the things that is very important, because we saw back in 2016 being hamstrung, he does have to clean house. Absolutely. Next up, a different comment from a different viewer. Just thinking of Trump's nominees and how the people should stress to senators, etc., the importance of putting them through ASAP or risk political damage down the road. The Democrats don't sugarcoat their agenda, and neither should we. Time to be proactive. Thank you very much. Another comment, I like this one. I look forward to hearing the great comments from viewers. Me too. Gives, frankly speaking, a third dimension feel to the show. Well, thank you very much. That's one of my favorite parts of the program. The comments from viewers and the waves and just the interaction that we have. That's why we've been saying from the very beginning, from our first broadcast, that this show is about community, and we're learning about our community through interviews, through guests, and of course through the topics of the day. Another comment from a viewer. If we end up at war with Russia, probably the first things that will disappear will be toilet paper from Walmart, the Russian vodka from liquor stores, and the elite to their underground bunkers. We're going to talk about what's happening with Russia and Ukraine. Just a thought, if we end up in nuclear war, it kind of shoots the whole climate change rhetoric in the foot. Considering that it would be a Democratic president that lit the world up wouldn't matter. There wouldn't be anyone left to blame. God save us. There is a lot of concern this morning. We're going to talk about that on the international front. Don Jr. suggesting that Biden was getting us into World War III before his father could take over and usher in peace and prosperity like we saw in 2016. One other comment on this. Imagine if Russia said they authorized bombing with a nuclear-capable missile inside the U.S. Would you think we would say, okay, if you do that, we are in a state of war? You bet we would. Well, here's what we have learned. Zelensky issued a stark warning to Vladimir Putin. He said, and I quote, "Missiles will speak for themselves." It comes as Washington has given the go-ahead for U.S. missiles to be used to strike inside Russian territory for the first time. Joe Biden has long snubbed Ukrainian leader Zelensky's pleas for Western-supplied weapons to be used on Russian turf, fearing that the war would escalate. I guess now that he's a lame duck, he figures, why not? But it is understood the U.S. president has given the green light just 2 months before he exits the White House. Very dangerous, of course. Zelensky said, there's a lot of talk in the media about us receiving permission for respective actions, but strikes are not carried out with words. Such things are not announced. Missiles will speak for themselves. Now, with Donald Trump due to take over as president in 2 months, it is unclear whether he will uphold his predecessor's policies. Putin has updated his nuclear doctrine. Yeah, this is very scary stuff. After Biden's arms decision, this coming from CNN, President Vladimir Putin has updated Russia's nuclear doctrine 2 days after his U.S. counterpart, Joe Biden, granted Ukraine permission to strike targets deep inside Russia with U.S.-made weapons. Under the updated doctrine issued yesterday, or really technically this morning, Moscow will consider aggression from any non-nuclear state, but with the participation of a nuclear country, a joint attack on Moscow. The Kremlin began the fresh round of nuclear saber rattling yesterday, saying the revised military doctrine would, in theory, lower the bar to first use of nuclear weapons. In a phone call with reporters, Kremlin spokesperson Dmitry Peskov noted the changes mean that, quote, the Russian Federation reserves the right to use nuclear weapons in the event of aggression, using conventional weapons against it and or the Republic of Belarus. Nuclear deterrence is a pillar of Russian military doctrine, but the revision appears to broaden the definition of what would be considered aggression against Russia. Quote, an important element of this document is that nuclear deterrence is aimed at ensuring that a potential adversary understands the inevitability of retaliation in the event of aggression against the Russian Federation or its allies. Now, again, with all this unfolding, Don Jr. saying that it looks as if Biden is potentially starting World War III. It's a very scary thought. Moscow is now warning the United States over allowing Ukraine to hit Russian soil, saying that it adds fuel to the fire of the war and would escalate international tensions even higher. Biden's shift in policy added an uncertain new factor to the conflict on the eve of the 1,000-day milestone. It also came as a Russian ballistics missile with cluster munitions struck a residential area of Sumy in northern Ukraine, killing 11 people and injuring 84 others. Another missile barrage sparked apartment fires in the southern port of Odessa, killing at least 10 people and injuring 43. Washington is easing limits on what Ukraine can strike with its American-made Army tactical missile systems. After months of ruling out such a move over fears of escalating the conflict and bringing about a direct confrontation between Russia and NATO, the Kremlin was swift in its condemnation, saying, quote, "It is obvious that the outgoing administration in Washington intends to take steps, and they've been talking about this, to continue adding fuel to the fire and provoking further escalation of tensions around this conflict." Russia's UN ambassador, Vasily Nebenzia, went further at a UN Security Council meeting marking 1,000 days of war, saying Moscow is astounded that the leaders of Britain and France are eager to play into the hands of the exiting administration and are dragging not just their countries, but the entire Europe into larger scale escalation with drastic consequences. The scope of the new firing guidelines isn't clear, but the change came after the U.S., South Korea, and NATO said North Korean troops are in Russia and apparently are being deployed to help Moscow drive Ukrainian troops from Russia's Kursk border region. Now, Sweden and Finland have actually warned their residents to be ready for war, that the, quote, situation is serious. Sweden and Finland have all begun warning their residents to prepare for the possibility of war as Russia's full-scale invasion of Ukraine rages on. They published the latest version of In Case of Crisis or War. It's a pamphlet instructing civilians on how to prepare for and ride out a national crisis that was last sent out in 2018. The pamphlet, which has been issued 5 times since World War II, is now twice as long as 32 pages. At 32 pages, and focuses on war preparation as the Swedish government warns of the worsening situation in Ukraine. Quote, "The security situation is serious, and we all need to strengthen our resilience to face various crises and ultimately war," said the director of Swedish Civil Contingencies Agency. An estimated 5.2 million copies of the pamphlet are set to be delivered to Swedish households in the next 2 weeks, with the text available in multi-languages online. The text calls on citizens to be ready with a stockpile of food and emergency supplies, including baby food, medicine, and hygiene products. The Swedish campaign comes as neighboring Finland has also published its own crisis prep brochure detailing how the Finnish government would react in case of war. Helsinki warned that as of the last government survey in September, only 58% of Finns have adequate emergency supplies at home to ride out a crisis. The warning comes after Norway published its own physical pamphlets earlier this year on how to manage by themselves for a week in the event of a national crisis, including war. "We have sent out 2.2 million paper copies, one for each household in Norway," said the Norwegian a person of civil protection. Sweden and Finland's prep comes within the two nations, which have long been neutral, decided to join NATO following Russia's invasion of Ukraine over fears that the Kremlin would continue claiming territory across Eastern Europe. Russia currently holds about 20% of Ukraine as the invasion approaches its 3rd year, with Kiev struggling to hold back Moscow's slow but steady advances. So that was a long response to a viewer comment, but something that cannot be taken lightly. Not sure the decision making process of President Biden, as he has 2 months making major changes to the policy regarding Ukraine and the use of those missiles. That's why, again, Don Trump Jr., I believe, saying in no uncertain terms that it looks as if Biden is trying to start World War III before his father can take over and usher in, as he did in 2016, peace and prosperity. So that's an update. The New York Post has an opinion piece on it. I have a moment. And they say that Biden's missile edict is about Ukraine getting as much leverage as it can before Trump takes office. The Biden administration's decision to allow Ukraine to strike Russian territory with U.S.-provided missiles is unlikely to change the course of the war dramatically. The move has been subject of fierce speculation for months, giving Russia plenty of time to adapt. It also comes as American support for Ukraine is waning, with an incoming administration that seems more inclined to strike a deal with Vladimir Putin rather than underwrite Ukraine's effort to defend itself. The decision, however, is not inconsequential, as illustrated by the hysterical responses from Putin's political allies inside Russia. Quote, "Very big steps toward the beginning of the Third World War," one member said. And in Europe, an illustration, according to Hungary's foreign minister, of pro-war force eager to expand the war in Ukraine to a global scale. Ukraine's expanded firepower gives the nation a chance to hold on to the sliver of Russian territory it has been controlling since its successful incursion into the Kursk region in the summer of this year. That, in turn, may serve as a source of leverage for Kiev in the upcoming negotiations. It may well be the only ace in Zelensky's sleeve, which is why Russian forces, with North Korean assistance, are trying so hard to push the Ukrainians out. Those who argue that the war, like all wars, will end at a negotiating table are not completely wrong. They forget, however, that negotiations oftentimes ratify outcomes achieved on the battlefield. If the Russians are successful in their war effort, and their steady advances suggest that they are, they will make maximalist demands on the Trump administration and on President Zelensky, likely verging on ending Ukraine's existence as an independent nation. Alas, President Trump is likely to acquiesce to many of those conditions, in part because neither he nor his circle deeply care about Ukraine. This, again, coming from the New York Post. Take it with a grain of salt, as Delabor Rauch is a senior fellow at the American Enterprise Institute in Washington, D.C. That's who is writing this. Taking Ukraine's NATO membership off the table carries zero cost for a U.S. leader who never contemplated admitting Ukraine into the alliance to begin with. Ouster of Zelensky and Russia's veto over Ukraine foreign policy choices in the future, also known as Finlandization. Why should he care? Control over a small portion of Kiev, etc., etc. Those who have inroads and credibility with the Trump circle, furthermore, must explain that the contours of the resulting agreement matter for America's interest in Europe. Steamrolling Ukraine at the negotiating table increases the likelihood that Putin waltzes in once Trump leaves office, or that through hybrid warfare, he turns Ukraine into a failed state without a viable shot at membership in the European Union. That outcome, in turn, will determine whether the deal that Trump world so eagerly wants brings about peace or becomes a prelude to a much larger European war. Here's hoping that Ukraine and the collective West use the upcoming window of opportunity to the maximization and cripple the Russian war effort, and that President Trump takes advantage of the same to reflect on what legacy he would like to leave behind as a leader. So I'd love to hear your opinion. A little bit of international to kick off our program this morning. I would love to hear from you. We've got to take a short break. Got a couple other signs of weakness on the world front. We're also going to talk about that knife attack in New York City just quickly, because I was watching the news this morning getting ready for work, and they said, how could this happen? How could this guy with such a long arrest record be out on the streets in New York? Welcome to the club. Welcome to the Get Rid of Bail Reform Club. Of course, this unfortunately is what is a conversation that we have frequently on this program with Sheriff Allard and others, that this recidivism due to bail reform, not getting in any kind of trouble, not even a slap on the wrist, sometimes out of jail before the ink is even dry on the paperwork or even started. So we're going to talk about that as well. Stay with us. Just getting started here on Frankly Speaking, and we'll be right back.
If you or a loved one regularly used hair relaxers or straighteners and were diagnosed with uterine, ovarian, or endometrial cancer, you may be entitled to significant financial compensation.
I've used hair relaxers for years. I had no idea they could cause cancer.
Chemical hair relaxers and straighteners have been linked to serious conditions, including several types of cancer. If you used hair relaxers and have been diagnosed with uterine, ovarian, or endometrial cancer, call us now. There's no fee unless we win your case. Call today.
You rip and tear your old statements and bills and simply toss those old bottles of pills. But thieves use this information to steal your identity. Don't be a victim. Get the ID Police, the new ink roller that encrypts all your old documents. So before you throw it out, just roll it on and your information is gone. Look, an identity thief can use simple information to get access to your credit card. Then you're responsible for the bills. But ID Police permanently prints a unique encryption graphic that makes it impossible to read through, both on the front and through the back, even if the paper is held up to the light. And it works on all forms of paper, matte or glossy. Paper shredders are slow and always jam, but roll with ID Police and you're in control. Watch again. Here's a bank statement with your name and account number. Now, one easy roll and all your personal information is blocked. Name and address? Blocked. Credit card number? Blocked. phone, electricity, and gas bill. Now they're all safe to toss in the trash. So relax. Even your medical information is safe with the ID Police. And those applications or pre-approved checks make you vulnerable too. So block it out before you throw it out. And thwart any thief with the ID Police. Order now and get your ID Police for as low as $9.99. And get free shipping too. That's right, free shipping. This offer is not available on Amazon, but it is available online or on the phone. So call or click now to get your ID Police for as low as $9.99 with free shipping. Take control with ID Police on patrol. Order now.
Call 1-800-731-2964. That's 1-800-731-2964. Or visit getidpolice.com. So call 1-800-731-2964 now.
The Frankly Speaking Roof Cam brought to you by Boss Security in Horseheads. Contact Boss Security for all your business and home security needs. Welcome back to Frankly Speaking as we broadcast live from the Hesselson studio. Comment from a viewer here. I don't like the EU. I think it's controlled by the global elite, and they are only interested in their own needs. I feel like the EU is the world's bully. Thank you very much. Did you see at the G20 summit, we had the story, was it yesterday, of Biden taking that quote-unquote family photo? It was in the second row to the right. Well, now he couldn't even be found for the photo. Hearing a colleague say he's behind the palm tree. Biden skipped the family picture after buzz ahead of time that he would do so to avoid being seen smiling alongside Russian Foreign Minister Sergei Lavrov during the ongoing Ukraine war. The White House blamed logistical issues afterwards and said it was simply a matter of bad timing that Biden missed the photo. Oh my goodness, they took it. An American journalist was heard uttering on the pooled video feed after other leaders clasped hands and smiled without the retiring commander-in-chief. Yep, he's right there. He's behind the palm tree right now, an unidentified reporter alerted them. All right, anyway. So I had mentioned, and it's so sad, it's heartbreaking, the third victim of the knife-wielding lunatic in New York City has died. The attacker has confessed to the grisly New York City stabbing spree. This is an important conversation to have because of bail reform and the laws that tie the hands of our police officers and coddle criminals. Wilma Augustin, 36, the alleged third and final victim of 51-year-old Raymond Riviera, succumbed to her injuries in the hospital yesterday evening. Thoughts and prayers go out to her and the other victims' families. Riviera, a homeless man with an extensive criminal record and reported mental health ailments, allegedly confessed to the unprovoked stabbing that began in the morning and crossed the widths of the Bureau from Chelsea to the East River. A 36-year-old male construction worker waiting to be picked up from work and a 67-year-old man who was fishing in the East River were also killed in separate stabbings throughout Manhattan by the same suspect. Riviera, who was released from Rikers just a month ago and was living in Bellevue's men's shelter, was charged with 3 counts of murder. He walked with his head down and didn't respond to reporters' questions as he was led out of Manhattan's 10th precinct in a white jumpsuit, handcuffs, and ankles. This was on Monday night. Ankle shackles, on Monday night. The accused killer stared icily at the crowd of reporters and onlookers once he was seated in the back of an unmarked squad car. They said that the killings were random and unprovoked. As of right now, these attacks seem to be unprovoked, and he just walked up to them and began to attack them with the knives. Just getting out of jail, we've talked about his extensive rap sheet. Released from jail just 1 month before the deadly attack. He was released from jail October 17th on a time-served sentence for a spate of recent burglaries and assault convictions after spending most of the year behind bars. The release perplexed Mayor Eric Adams, who said NYPD investigators were looking into how a career criminal with a history of mental illness could walk free despite his recent convictions. We are still looking over his record, but there's a real question on why he was on the street. This, again, goes back to the lackadaisical bail reform laws that have created so much havoc, unfortunately, in New York. And it's not just New York City. We mentioned this story because it is New York City, but it's happened, and we've talked about even locally, victims that didn't need to be victims due to the bail reform laws that apparently Albany has no interest in changing. As a matter of fact, we don't even joke about it, that when they are in session, there's a concern of what new law will be put into effect that will coddle criminals. And as you recall on yesterday's program, we had a viewer send in the fact that it is now officially New York state law that you don't have to have your criminal record. There's a certain time frame, but your criminal record on applications for jobs, for apartments, that even up to felonies, certain felonies, do not have to be reported. And they said it'll help employers that are struggling to find workers. Well, then why do you have to mislead them? Can't they make that decision if they want to hire a convicted felon or not? Why is it up to Albany to erase those records? But I'll continue. Court records show that Riviera was arrested again the day of his release on a grand larceny charge after prosecutors said he stole a nearly $1,500 acrylic bowl from a fancy shop in Tribeca. Manhattan prosecutors pushed for bail, and a judge ordered him released on non-monetary conditions ahead of a December 4th court date. Let's read that line again. The man who went on a killing spree, killing 3 by stabbing, got out of prison. The day he gets out of prison, he was arrested on grand larceny charges, and, quote, the Manhattan prosecutors pushed for bail, and a judge ordered him released on non-monetary conditions ahead of a December 4th court date. Sources revealed Riviera has had at least 8 past arrests in New York City, a history of mental health issues, and years of police run-ins crisscrossing several states. Many details about Riviera's record remained unclear as of Monday evening, but the broad strokes paint a portrait of a troubled, at times violent man living outside the law for decades. Riviera's latest stint behind bars began February 19th when NYPD officers arrested him in connection to a pattern of burglaries in Manhattan. Pictures are horrific. The burglaries went back to December of 2023 when a thief smashed glass doors and windows of bodegas and smoke shops to steal thousands of dollars worth of cigarettes, vapes, and lighters. Riviera stayed in custody in Rikers Island for months as prosecutors combined the burglary counts into a single indictment. In May, Riviera spent several days in Bellevue's hospital psych ward where authorities said he assaulted a corrections officer. Yes, and this man was on the street, folks. By August, he copped a guilty plea to burglary and received a 364-day sentence. The next month, he pleaded guilty to assaulting the corrections officer, earning a 90-day term to be served concurrently with the burglary sentences. Riviera was ultimately released after having served 3/4 or 9 months of his main sentence. Riviera's run-ins with NYPD cops also included 2 mental health incidents in November and December of 2023. Well, hopefully it opens people's eyes to the bail reform laws and the lackadaisical attitude towards criminals in this state. Watching the news this morning, them saying, how could this happen? How could he have been out on the street? We've been talking about this for years now, and the disastrous effect the bail reform laws have had on public safety. That's why Lee Zeldin did so well in his race for governor, because he ran on public safety, making inroads for Republicans, of course, ultimately helping the Republicans win the House majority during the midterms. But again, running on public safety because it's not just in the city. As we've said numerous times, it has affected us locally as well. Okay, there's a couple of different stories. We are going to also talk about New York in general and what the numbers look like in deep blue New York. For Trump, we've learned some new things on that. Also, we want to talk about Pennsylvania because that Senate race is still ongoing. We'll talk about that as well. So stay with us. We're just getting started. 25 minutes in to the program. So stay with us. We'll be right back with Frankly Speaking here on WYDC TV, Big Fox.
Isn't your wellness important? Don't you want more energy? Now's the best time to make every day better and relieve those achy muscles and pains than with the Hesselson's Hot Tub. Hesselson's has hot tubs in stock and available for immediate delivery with unbelievable savings. Hesselson's offers 0% interest-free financing for up to 5 full years. Hesselson's carries the only hot tub brand in the industry with the exclusive freshwater salt system that is eco-friendly and easy to use and only enhances your hot tubbing experience. Come in today and see why your next hot tub should be a Hesselson's hot tub. And remember, it's always fun to poke in the corners at Hesselson's.
Why it's hard to stop a train? It's how we've invented products that reinvented our world. It's how we test as hard as the elements do. It's how we run.
Aaron's Heating and Air Conditioning in Corning, New York is a local, veteran-owned and operated company with over 25 years' experience. From service and repair to new installations, trust the experts at Aaron's Heating and Air Conditioning.
How many times have you tried to clean a stubborn mess but end up with no success? What you need is the all-new waterproof Ruby Horsepower, the new cordless and rechargeable power scrubber that cleans faster and easier, guaranteed. Watch, baked on oven grease is no match. It blasts away dirt and grime in no time. The power comes from our rotating brushes, spinning at 350 RPM. The incredible torque fights calcium, mildew, mold, and more. Take it in the kitchen, where it busts through caked-on crud, or outside and tackle tough tasks with ease. Get your Ruby Horsepower with 4 additional attachments, all for just $39.99. Great news! They're in stock and ready to ship. Due to high demand, only 2 per order. Order now.
Call 1-800-980-2344. That's 1-800-980-2344 or visit horsepowerscrubber.com. So call 1-800-980-2344 now.
It's a season of sharing.
Having a good time has always been my #1 goal. I tend to get crazy. At my age, I should not be jumping up and down like that. And if you don't know what I mean, ask your mama. The young ones, y'all like, we don't know what you're talking about. But I promise you, in 30 years, you will.
It's the best time in daytime.
Weekdays at 2 p.m. on Big Fox.
The Boss Security Roof Cam. Contact Boss Security today for all your business and home security needs. We are back with Frankly Speaking, broadcasting live from the Hesselson studio here on Marcus Street in Corning. Again, thank you so much for joining us. Comment from Ken. Hi, Ken. Good morning. Sounds like Riviera wanted to go back in, both with the theft immediately when released and now with the murders. He might have felt the most comfortable inside. New York and the judge have more blood on their hands. I'm telling you, this bail reform, Albany as well, the danger of bail reform, and again, I know I say it probably too often, but the victims that did not need to be victims, that repeatedly victimized because of these laws that coddle criminals and tie the hands of law enforcement. Something completely different. We are going to talk about Morning Joe, not for long, but I think it's a larger picture of what's going on in the media after the election. But first, did you see the Trump signature dance? I mentioned it on yesterday's program that John Jones, the fighter, after defending the heavyweight championship, he gave Trump his belt, but also did the Trump dance. I'm not going to try to do it. You know what it is. It's now a global phenomenon as athletes adopt the move in droves, and the NFL is not happy about it. I can't remember which team it was. It'll probably say in this piece, shutting off press contact with one of the players who did the dance. President-elect. Now, there's actually an opinion piece by a conservative, and his name escapes me, but he had a piece on this saying that it goes to show now that conservatives have the market for kind of pop culture. I'm not sure if I completely agree with that, but I do think we've made huge leeway when it comes to pop culture. If you look at the late Andrew Breitbart, he always said the politics is downstream from pop culture, and Republicans have done a terrible job of seeding things like Hollywood, music, academia, and that's an avenue we have to fight on, was his thought, Andrew Breitbart, and I agree. And so things like this make a big difference. President-elect Donald Trump has been known to cut a rug on the campaign trail, and now his signature moves are being borrowed as a celebratory dance by athletes on the football field, the soccer pitch, and even in the mixed martial arts octagon. We mentioned John Jones dancing. The fighter almost immediately punctuated his triumph by breaking into Trump's hip-swaying, fist-pumping dance before approaching the president-elect from the ring and presenting him with the UFC heavyweight championship belt. Football players, both pro and collegiate, have also adopted the distinct dance moves since the election, creating instantly viral moments being shared millions of times on social media. In the NFL, the trend is thought to have originated with the San Francisco 49ers defensive lineman Nick Bosa, who started hoofing it Trump style alongside teammates Lloyd or Leonard Floyd, excuse me. I'm not going to read all the players. Back on November the 10th. A video showing the celebration posted on X garnered nearly 3 million views and got Boza a nod on Trump's social media network, Truth Social, from the president-elect himself. All the guys wanted me to do it. I wasn't even going to do it. But the boys reminded me, and it was fun, Boza said. As for his inspiration for the steps, I think you know the answer to that question, he said. Since the Trump dance has spread like wildfire throughout the NFL, you also have Las Vegas Raiders rookie Brock Bowers breaking it out after a touchdown. And I could go through the whole list here, but it is taking off. It's a global phenomenon. The dance might even be more popular among college football players. Not to be outdone, Trump fans across the Atlantic are also tripping the light fantastic. Wow, haven't heard that in a long time. In the style of the soon-to-be 47th president, with a recent video on X showing Barnsley players doing the dance in unison after scoring a goal against Cambridge United. That's just an update from yesterday's story, something a little bit different. Okay, so defeated left-wing MSNBC anchors Joe Scarborough and Minka Brzezinski reveal that they met with Trump, saying it's time to do something different. And they almost said it as if they had attended a funeral because they had to walk a fine line. Their demographic is far left. So they want Trump viewers, but they don't want to alienate the viewers that have been loyal to them because of just confirming their leftist worldview. They've been vicious to Donald Trump, especially during the election, comparing him to Hitler and others. Now they reveal that they had a personal sit-down with the president-elect in Florida to restart communications after conceding that voters overwhelmingly made their choice. Well, they're just trying to win back because ratings are plummeting, and that's why I bring this up. We're going to be talking about ratings in the media. We know Gallup shows in the Gallup poll that Americans historically do not trust the media. The media actually ranks lower than their trust in Congress. They reached out in the wake of his election win. 5 years of political warfare has deeply divided Washington and the country. We have been as clear as we know how when expressing our deep concerns about President Trump's actions and words and the coarsening of public debate, Brzezinski said. But for nearly 80 million Americans, election denialism, public trials, January 6th were not as important as the issues that moved them to send Donald Trump back to the White House with their vote. Joe and I realized it's time to do something different, and that starts with not only talking about Donald Trump, but also talking with him. They talked about issues including abortion, mass deportation, and threats of political retribution against political opponents and media outlets. Man, still pushing the scare tactics, not realizing why they ultimately lost. We talked about that a good bit. It will come as no surprise to anybody who watches this show, has watched it over the past year or over the past decade, that we didn't see eye to eye on a lot of issues, and we told him so. Wow, good for you, Joe. Brzezinski then added, then we did agree on that we were going to restart communications. Well, she acknowledged that Trump was cheerful and upbeat. We don't need to know all about that. He was extremely cordial, and the couple praised his flawless 2024 campaign. Many things were discussed, and I very much appreciated the fact that they wanted to have open communications. In many ways, it's too bad that it wasn't done long ago, said Trump on the meeting. Now, it did exactly what they were hoping it wouldn't do. The backlash has begun, shameless, calling it hypocrisy, bending the knee to Trump. Again, the anchors who slammed Trump as a fascist and compared him to Adolf Hitler had that face-to-face meeting to, quote, restart communications. The backlash against the pair was swift, not just from the left that watches MSNBC, but from all sides, with many blasting Scarborough and Brzezinski for their shamelessness, as others raged that they were bending the knee and kissing the ring by arranging their first sit-down with him in 7 years. Hitler getting a lot more meeting requests than I would have thought, said Republican strategist Scott Jennings. Washington Examiner chief political correspondent Brian York tweeted, annals of shamelessness. They called Trump a fascist and much, much more. And then just 22 days after his Nazi-like rally, they fly to Florida for an audience. Eli Lake, a Free Press columnist, wrote, why would Trump bother talking to these people other than to urge them to seek mental health counseling? Critics came out in droves, accusing the lefty anchors of hypocrisy. Once again, Democrats never actually thought Trump was Hitler or a fascist dictator. If you were propagandized, it's okay. You got played, someone tweeted. And that's a very good point. It goes back to the criticism that Joe Biden was receiving from Democrats when he seemed to be in such a jovial and happy mood, welcoming Trump back to the White House and saying, wait a minute, you called him a dictator. You said it's the end of democracy as we know it. And now you welcome him with open arms? One Twitter user said, imagine being a liberal and listening to Morning Joe and Mika tell you for years that Trump is a threat to democracy. Then one morning you wake up and hear Mika admit that they went and bent the knee to Trump. Others accuse the talking heads of just trying to salvage ratings with their parent about face, which has been, some has described as a hostage video. And it very much, that's a great way of putting it, a hostage video. It looked, like I said, that they were coming back from a funeral. Yeah, many saying that it was to save their career. We got to take a short break. I'm not going to focus too much on this. It just is interesting to see how the media is making moves now that President Trump won in such an overwhelming fashion. Now, some have learned a little bit. Some have not at all, and they're doubling, tripling down on the rhetoric. We'll talk about that as well. So stay with us. This is Frankly Speaking here on WYDC TV, Big Fox.
If you or a loved one regularly used hair relaxers or straighteners and were diagnosed with uterine, ovarian, or endometrial cancer, you may be entitled to significant financial compensation.
I've used hair relaxers for years. I had no idea they could cause cancer.
Chemical hair relaxers and straighteners have been linked to serious conditions, including several types of cancer. If you used hair relaxers and have been diagnosed with uterine, ovarian, or endometrial cancer, call us now. There's no fee unless we win your case. Call today.
Whether because of discomfort, lack of mobility, your lifestyle, or occupation, you sit inactively way too many hours a day. Introducing Ellipse, the premium quality automatic seated exerciser that strengthens legs, increases mobility, and boosts circulation without physical strain or impact.
It is so quiet that none of my coworkers even know I'm using it.
Strengthen and tone your legs, increase your mobility, flexibility, and balance, plus stimulate healthy circulation.
My joints feel better, my knees feel better, my back feels better. It makes me feel stronger too.
Perfect for home therapy. Whisper quiet to use while you work.
My circulation is moving, I'm burning calories, and it makes me feel energetic.
Call now and order Ellipse, the seated exerciser that strengthens legs, increases mobility, and boosts circulation. Call and get upgraded to the Deluxe Bundle. Get the faster motor or 5 miles of steps per hour, the step counter, the sport mat, and wireless remote. Call now.
When we have the food we need, we are at our best. We push further. We rise higher. We unlock our full potential. When we are at our best, we have more to offer the world around us. We make our communities stronger. Together, we can help everyone get the food they need to thrive. Join the movement to end hunger at feedingamerica.org/actnow.
Thank you again to Boss Security for bringing us that beautiful view of historic Market Street. Contact Boss Security in Horseheads today with all your business and home security needs. Welcome back as we broadcast live from the Hesselson studio here on Market Street in Corning. Comment from a viewer regarding the coddling of criminals. It's nonsensical coddling of criminals by liberal Democrats that only makes me sick, but further causes me to question the mental health of Democrats. It's a virtue signaling thing. It is to show that they care the most, never mind the after effect of it, never mind the consequences of it. This is obviously, hopefully, this case raises awareness yet again and a pushback of we demand public safety in this state. And you would think Governor Hochul, while you could tell she realizes that it is a real issue for her, because remember, she said she made some changes to it. There was no teeth to it. At all, but she realized that this was becoming quite an issue for her. It almost cost her the governor's mansion. Okay, back to Joe and Mika's meeting with Trump being ridiculed by so many pundits. Like I said, Scott Jennings, Hitler getting a lot more meeting requests than I would have thought. so many people. It's difficult to overstate how dishonest these two are. Mika and Joe screamed for months that Trump is a fascist who would end democracy. Now that he's elected and very popular, they visit him like it's just coffee with an opposing party politician, Steve Cortez said. Charles Cook said they made it sound like international diplomacy. Yes, it was very condescending how they said it. Almost like, we did this for you. We talked with him. Talk with the president-elect? My goodness. Keith Oberman said, breaking news, I told you so, Joe and Mika, Trump collaborators. Not a word, Mr. and Mrs. Quisling. They can never be trusted again. Not that those words ever should have been trusted. They are confidence tricksters and grifters. There's a point to be made there. Joe Scarborough, of course, a Republican when he was in the House, then switching to whatever was best politically expedient for Joe Scarborough, whatever would get him a job. Remember when he made that big announcement that I'm no longer a Republican? Everybody said, okay. We knew that, but we don't care. But he's always looked to get that attention. It doesn't matter which way the winds are blowing. That's the way he's going to go, whatever's politically expedient for Joe Scarborough. Republicans against Trump tweeted out, this is why people don't trust the mainstream media anymore. Joe and Mika, who constantly attack fascist Trump on their show, went to Mar-a-Lago to talk with Trump over the weekend. We didn't see eye to eye on a lot of issues, and we told him so. Well, who cares? Bowing in advance, cowards, said one Twitter user, Dean Obadala, who used to work at CNN. I don't know if he does anymore. Given Morning Joe and Mika are now sucking up to Trump, I wanted to reshare my clip from MSNBC on Friday when I made it clear we will never surrender to Trump. We will take the fight to him. We will not meet him halfway on his fascism. So all sides attacking Joe Scarborough and Mika Brzezinski. Nikki Haley and Charlemagne agreed that the Morning Joe co-hosts visited Trump because they saw their ratings tank. And that's why I bring this up, and we're going to talk about it in the larger picture of media and the media landscape as it is today. They both agreed, again, Nikki Haley and Charlemagne, the radio host, saying that they just saw their ratings plummet. Mika Brzezinski and Joe Scarborough tore me up when I said anything about voting for Donald Trump or what I agreed with him on, even though I criticized him when I thought he was wrong. I praised him when I thought he was good. They tore me up, Haley said. But the truth is, it's not that they suddenly saw the light. It's that they saw the ratings. I mean, let's be clear. They saw the ratings tank and they realized, oh, we better get on with Donald Trump or else we're not going to have a show. And Charlemagne interjected saying it's a ratings and revenue game. What I don't understand is if you don't like something that somebody's saying, if you don't like something that somebody's doing, why not try to talk to that person about it and challenge them right then and there? He said, that's why I think the biggest issue is even now when I see all these liberals, they're having these conversations about, oh, the left needs a Joe Rogan or the left needs a conservative network like the right has. It's like, no, how about grow up, we'll say, and go on these platforms? How about go talk to Joe Rogan? Yes, many have criticized Kamala Harris specifically for not taking that interview with Joe Rogan. He said, when you look at what Governor Newsom is doing right now, I think it's a smart strategy. Like, he's not my favorite candidate, right? Or anybody that I'm looking to support at this moment. But I like his media strategy going on Fox News. He's meeting people where they are. And I think that's what a lot of these politicians aren't doing, at least the Democratic politicians. They're not meeting people where they are. And I would have to say that was the most obvious criticism of Harris at the time, that she wasn't meeting people. She was going on Stephen Colbert. She was going on The View, very friendly outlets. And even though Joe Rogan, and again, I got to highlight this number because it just blew me away. She did that podcast called Call Her Daddy, right? It had about 8 million views. Nothing to sneeze at. 8 million is a lot of people to watch that interview. Donald Trump's interview with Joe Rogan got 70 million views. Think about that for a moment. 70 million views. And Harris turned down that opportunity to be on Joe Rogan's show. We're going to talk a little bit more about Morning Joe, but then we're moving along. It's just to paint a larger picture, like I said, of the media. So stay with us. We'll be right back with Frankly Speaking here on WYDC TV, Big Fox.
During high school, I hung with the wrong crowd and I never graduated.
I helped Santiago in many different ways, like all fathers do, because he always wanted to go to college.
I felt a little embarrassed to come back to school, but eventually, once I came here, I knew that it's for a bigger goal.
He was was very dedicated, hardworking. He connected with his teachers. He connected with other students. That was one of the key reasons why he was able to keep forging ahead.
It was amazing to see him graduate. This was one thing that meant so much to him, and of course, it meant so much to us too.
With the help of my father and having my son, that was all the motivation that I needed. That support is everything.
Find free adult education classes near you at finishyourdiploma.org.
Welcome to Frankly Speaking, talking to the people that affect your life, that affect all of our day-to-day lives. This is something you're not going to get anywhere else. We've got a lot to offer. There'll be a lot of news, local, regional, national, really the things that affect you. And I think you'll be glad that you tuned in. So think of it as radio on TV. Frankly Speaking, live, 2 hours long, starting at 6 a.m. on WYDC TV Big Fox. This is And we are back. That's the Boss Security Roof Cam. Contact them today for all your business and home security needs. This is Frankly Speaking. We're broadcasting live from the Hesselson studio. Here's a comment from a viewer. Who's Joe and Mika? Never heard of them. Yes. Well, it goes to show you the struggle that the media is in right now. MSNBC staffers are slamming Morning Joe, an unnamed employee vented to Fox News Digital, characterizing the meeting as cowardice and disgusting, but frankly unsurprising. Yes, these are people that have historically done whatever is best for them, politically expedient. The same employee told the outlet that MSNBC staff members have become largely disdainful of the left-wing network hosts in light of the news, calling them opportunistic. MSNBC contributor Jennifer Rubin called the meeting disgusting. The Comcast, this is what it all boils down to, because you're going to see a lot more of this type of reaction. The Comcast-owned cable news channel experienced a drastic 54% ratings dip in the election's immediate aftermath. One Twitter user saying, gutted by Joe and Mika this morning. Total capitulation after years of railing about Trump's lack of fitness. Not even an interview to show their journalistic integrity. Just a pure kiss the ring session. Disappointed and done with them and their show. Megyn Kelly went even further. I can't use the language she used, but at one point she said, "You dishonest jokes of faux journalism." What an absurd farce that was. Glenn Greenwald saying, "It is nauseating. It's so stomach-turning. They're so disgusting." And then what happens is Joe Scarborough found out he was not going to be the vice presidential running mate. He had been rejected for that position, and they turned. They turned on Trump because access to power is everything to that small little man. Literally, and Kelly responded, literally, no one wants to see this fence mended. All right. Well, the reason I bring that up is because what they're calling the Trump slump, which is the ratings disasters for many of these outlets that had pushed for years their hatred of Trump, that Trump was going to be Hitler and a fascist. Joe Concha said that leftist viewers deal MSNBC and CNN a Trump slump ratings crash. This time around, we've seen the opposite result. Because once it was called a Trump bump, now it's the Donald drain. At MSNBC, the home of the most unhinged commentary and analysis we've ever seen in the history of television, more than half its audience, 53%, is no longer tuning in compared to October's ratings. The Rachel Maddow Show, for example, easily MSNBC's top-rated program, though it only airs once a week, drew just 1.3 million viewers on November the 10th, 5 days after the election. That's a drop of 1 million viewers from the month before. Sean Hannity's, this is for context, Sean Hannity's Fox News program in the same time slot brought in more than 3.1 million total viewers, or nearly triple Maddow's that day. And here's where that's really bad news comes in for the executives at 30 Rock. Outside of Maddow, MSNBC has seen an unprecedented plunge. On Tuesday, November 11th, 1 week after the election, MSNBC attracted its lowest 25 to 45 or to 54 demo rating in 23 years. Not since when Bill Clinton was president. Think of that. And I don't want to go into all the numbers because I know it gets a little wonky and it's hard to just visualize that. It's so bad that Joe Scarborough and Minka Brzezinski crawled to Mar-a-Lago to meet with Trump, as we had mentioned. The ratings underscores just how niche these leftist networks have become. According to Pew Research, just 9% of CNN viewers and 3% of MSNBC's audience identify as Republican. So why now the sudden rejection? Maybe they feel betrayed and misled after years of being told that Trump was Hitler, a fascist, a racist, a sexist xenophobe who had to be stopped or democracy would cease to exist. Yet his actual victory showed that most of the country wasn't buying it. Not even President Biden, who welcomed Trump with open arms to the White House. These viewers were exposed only to polls showing the hapless Kamala Harris leading the key swing states. CNN, for instance, had her up 6 points over Trump in Wisconsin, 5 in Michigan, and tied in Pennsylvania in its last poll before Election Day. She lost all 3 and is behind in the popular vote by more than 2.5 million votes. Or maybe it's just fatigue. This election cycle, with its assassination attempts, its Democratic coup, and the historic return of a former president, has been the craziest anyone can remember. Maybe some folks just needed a break. Maybe other CNN and MSNBC viewers are simply too depressed with the outcome to tune in. So will their anchors, hosts, and analysts pivot away from playing the perpetual resistance to Trump? CNN provides one answer, quote, "We've seen people today, our fellow reporters, crying and hugging in the hallways," legal correspondent Paula Reed reported after Trump nominated Representative Matt Gaetz. Wait, why would serious and objective reporters be crying exactly? Did Walter Cronkite cry when Richard Nixon won twice? Did Tim Russert cry when George W. Bush won a nail-biter over Al Gore? Over at MSNBC, meanwhile, Joy Reid is spewing her same old rhetoric post-election. Quote, "Don't think because you have a green card and came through the right way, if you're brown, you may not stick around," Reid said on her November 4th broadcast. In other words, she's claiming Trump will deport those in the country legally. This is insanity. No, until the culture and talent changes at these networks, and by extension at outlets like the New York Times, which employs exactly 0 pro-Trump columnists, the chances of audiences returning in a media landscape filled with more options than ever before will continue to decline. So expect things to get worse. CNN's ratings Trump slump will lead to massive layoffs. MSNBC will likely be spun off from its parent company Comcast as the values continue to nosedive. And they have only themselves to blame. We got to take a break. A couple other quick media updates is worth mentioning because obviously they got it so wrong in the lead up to the election that it's fascinating they could continue their programs after the election. You know, it reminds me of the Rhino Bill Kristol, who got every prediction back in 2016 wrong about Trump. I mean everything. He said he was going to be out before Iowa, going to be out before Christmas, one embarrassing tweet after another, and yet still feeling confident to go on various Sunday shows or various shows and, again, offer what he knows is going to happen. It's the same what we're seeing here from the left, MSNBC, CNN, and others. We're going to talk more about it when we come back, but not too much more about it. So stay with us. This is Frankly Speaking.
Attention, Elmeron may lead to vision loss.
If you have suffered vision problems after taking Elmeron to treat bladder pain, call the Hearn Law Firm. Elmeron may be responsible for your vision problems, and you may deserve compensation for your injuries.
If you took Elmeron and now have vision problems, call the Hearn Law Firm at 888-308-3866 right now. You could find out if you qualify in less than 2 minutes. Call 888-308-3866 for your free case review.
Hey, boss. Okay?
Yeah, I'm good.
You sure?
I said I'm fine.
Since I was little, it was only like me and my parents.
You think you created family out of characters?
Yeah, of course.
I'm gonna take that and make it into a song.
Put me to bed, see you in the morning. With the frosted Superman, but it wasn't on it. And we lost it. In my head, in my head, in my head. Where you at on the way out? In my head, in my head, in my head.
Hey, son.
Hey, Pop.
You can talk to me.
It's been really, really hard for me.
And we are back. Thank you again to Boss Security for bringing us the roof cam on this beautiful but chilly morning here on Market Street. I'm your host, Frank Aiken. We're broadcasting live from the Hesselson studio. Let's go through some viewer comments. The only reason I ever watched mainstream media news during the election was to see what rubbish they were spreading about Trump. Or should I say garbage? Yes, you should probably say garbage. Thank you. Next up, it's so great that the Trump dance is driving the left crazy. Oh, it's driving them nuts. They're actually blocking access from certain football players. The PR team is, because they don't want them to do interviews saying how much fun they're having with the dance. If Harris had won, she would have stolen the dance moves, and even George Stephanopoulos would be cutting a rug and calling them bratty and sassy. I hope that everyone that walks by your window today stops to show you the moves. Yes, okay. No need to do that, but I appreciate it. Yes, I think it's great. It's a pop culture thing. It really is important that Republicans have inroads in the pop culture. You may not think it's important, but I agree with what the late Andrew Breitbart said, that politics is downstream from pop culture. And if we keep seeding Hollywood and music and academia, it's not good for the long term. We'll put it that way. Back to the media quickly. The AP, the Associated Press, is cutting 8% of its workforce as the new news organization shifts focus after the election cycle. So we heard about CNN laying off hundreds. We see what's happening at MSNBC. Now you have the AP reducing its staff by 8% and accelerating a transition to a digital-first organization. The move is part of what is expected to be a dispiriting end-of-the-year period in the news industry, which is beset by business woes that go back years. The end of a busy presidential election cycle was also expected to accelerate reorganization plans. The AP said those eligible for buyouts were to learn of the offer, which would include severance pay and partial health coverage for 18 months by the end of Monday. Those whose positions are due to be eliminated will learn about their fates over the next few weeks. Whew. And listen to this. I found that, and then we're going to show you some of the examples of how the media hasn't learned. But right before we go in this hour, a new survey found that social media influencers have, to an extent, replaced mainstream media. Listen to this, because we know there is a mistrust or distrust in the media. Gallup has proven it time and time again. About 21% of U.S. adults and nearly 40% of adults under 30 now get their news from individual creators. The recent presidential election highlighted the influence of influencers as both candidates leveraged creators in their campaigns and appeared on podcasts like Trump reaching 70 million voters with the Joe Rogan Experience and Kamala Harris reaching 8 million voters on the Call Her Daddy podcast. Pew surveyed 10,000 adults and studied 500 news influencers, or people who regularly post about the news and have 100,000 plus followers. There's a wide gender gap. The study found 63% of news influencers are men compared to 30% who are women. X is on top. 85% of news influencers are active on the site, while Instagram, the second most popular, is used by 50% of news influencers. And TikTok bucks the trends. It has the smallest gender gap, 50% male influencers and 45% female influencers. It is the only platform where news influencers who are publicly left-leaning outnumber those who are right-leaning. So expect legacy news outlets that are losing viewers and subscribers to start partnering up with popular influencers with no experience necessary. The study found 77% of news influencers have no past or present affiliation with a news organization. All right, that does it for this hour, frankly speaking. We're moving away from the media, kind of. We're going to talk about the Trump administration. A lot to discuss, so stay with us. Hour number 1 in the history books, and we'll be right back with hour number 2. Frankly speaking, stay with us.
When you think boots, think Hesselsen's. Hesselsen's has the largest selection of work boots in the area. Composite and steel-toe boots, Met-Guard boots, soft-toe boots, and hikers, duty and western boots, all in one location. Hesselsen's at Meyer Heights. Hesselsen's has men's and ladies' boots in all sizes and widths. Choose from the largest names in the industry: Danner, Carolina, Timberland Pro, Keen Utility, Thorogood, Area, and Georgia, to name just a few. Hesselsen's has been locally owned and operated since 1955, so when you think local service and great selection, think Hesselsen's. Remember, it's always fun to poke in the corners at Hesselsen's.
You rip and tear your old statements and bills, but thieves use this information to steal your identity. Don't be a victim. Get the ID Police, the new ink roller that encrypts all your old documents. So before you throw it out, just roll it on, and your information is gone, both on the front and through the back, even if the paper is held up to the light. Even your medical information is safe with the ID Police. So block it out before you throw it out. Order now and get your ID Police for as low as $9.99 and get free shipping too. This offer is not available on Amazon, so call or click now to get your ID Police for as low as $9.99 with free shipping. Order now.
Call 1-800-898-1002. That's 1-800-898-1002 or visit getidpolice.com. So call 1-800-898-1002. Order now.
Hour number 2 of Frankly Speaking. Welcome. I'm your host, Frank Acom, as we broadcast live from the Hesselson studio here on historic Market Street in Corning. We've got a lot to cover in this hour. We've been talking about the media bias. We've been talking about bail reform. We've really covered a little bit of everything. So let's get right back into it. Feel free to weigh in at any time. If you're new to the show, you see that number on the bottom of your screen. Oh, I missed a couple waves. On the bottom of your screen, feel free to comment at any time. Just to show you that the media hasn't learned, though, listen to this piece from the Independent out of the United Kingdom. Trump claims he has an unprecedented mandate. Experts say it's actually very small. Trump doesn't have the mandate he thinks he does, presidential historians tell Richard Hall, and Democrats should stop acting like he does. Okay, yeah. Democrats, stop acting like he does. Stop acting like this wasn't a landslide victory. That'll help you down your path to victories in the future. Don't learn anything from it. You might as well act like you won. Unbelievable. Oh, by the way, AOC, whew, she's getting attacked. She was pointing fingers at the American-Israel Public Affairs Committee. She was pointing the finger at them for the Democrats' Election Day losses, setting off a firestorm even, from critics who say she'd rather blame Jews than second-guess her own left-wing policies. The squad member, AOC, wrote, if people want to talk about members of Congress being overly influenced by a special interest group pushing a widely unpopular agenda that pushes voters away from Democrats, then they should be discussing AIPAC. Now think about that. The American-Israel Public Affairs Committee. What is so unpopular with their agenda? That Israel has a right to defend themselves? The tweet storm started with a comment from Bernie Sanders' advisor, Jeremy Slevin, who noted that Democrats need to have a reckoning over the ties to corporate and industry lobbies, which he believes have too much influence over the Democrat Party. X users were quick to call out AOC about the bipartisan pro-Israel group and her attack on them, and for her falling into that classic anti-Semitic trope and deflecting well-deserved blame from Democrat policies. Because it couldn't be the far-left policies. It has to be a Jewish organization. One conservative attorney, Marion Medvin, tweeted out, maybe stop blaming Jews for your problems. New York City Education Council member Maud Marin said every former Democrat I know is more concerned about the wildly unpopular agenda of the teachers union that closed our schools, masked our kids, lowers rigor, standards, and accountability while teaching an ahistorical, hateful version of America. But go on with your Jew hating. Wow. Going after AOC. AIPAC has raised more money for Democrats than AOC has. She has a weird obsession with Jews, always talking about AIPAC and Jews controlling Congress. Why hasn't she called out other advocacy groups? Why is she obsessed with Jews, said Ethan Fine. Speaking of Israel, I just want to tie that in because they haven't learned their lesson. We talked about, as Van Jones said, the marbling of the Democrat Party with anti-Semitism and many people calling out Harris for running a campaign that tried to coddle that anti-Semitic wing of the Democrat Party, trying to play to them and not lose their vote. Many people calling him out for doing that to again play to the radical base. But this is happening. This anti-Semitism, we've talked about it on college campuses. We talked about it in the streets. We see it in politicians and what they've said. Many speculated that's why Harris didn't pick Pennsylvania Governor Josh Shapiro, which we are going to talk about Pennsylvania here in just a moment. But I had to pass this along to you because this is an update from a story that we've been bringing you on this program for quite some time. A staggering 72% of Jewish college students in the U.S. feel unwelcome on their campus. 72%. While more than half have even been victims of anti-Semitism. The civil rights group Stop Anti-Semitism issued report cards on how more than 24 university campuses have been addressing hatred against Jews and reevaluated 5 other campuses previously graded by the organization. Now, this unfortunately hits in our backyard with Cornell. We're going to talk about that in a second. We know it's bad. We saw administrators, we saw the presidents of these universities coddling, I don't want to stop using that word, protecting the anti-Semitic protesters with their violence and destruction at the cost of their Jewish community at their schools who were intimidated and threatened. 2 New York City schools, well, is Cornell University considered New York City? No. 2 New York City schools, Cornell University and the New School, were slapped with a shameful F grade. Cornell University receiving an F grade, meaning it is rife with anti-Semitism. Right in our backyard, Cornell. Among the organization's other findings, Jewish students at the surveyed campuses revealed 72% feel unwelcome in certain spaces on campus simply for being Jewish. 52% had personally been victims of anti-Semitism at their school. 67% feel their university did not take sufficient action to protect Jewish students in the wake of the Hamas October 7, 2023 massacre in Israel. 43% said that they hide their Jewish identity from classmates out of fear, and the same percentage would not recommend their school to fellow Jewish students. 43% did not feel safe enough to report the anti-Semitism against them. Of those who did report it, a staggering 87% believe their school failed to properly investigate the crimes. And finally, 69% said they are blamed for the actions of Israel by Palestinian backers. The Stop Anti-Semitism report said universities are failing their Jewish students, often leaving them vulnerable and unsupported. The group said it was forced to triple the size of its organization just to manage the recent deluge of complaints about hatred against Jews, which it described as a jaw-dropping, listen to this, 3,000% rise in anti-Semitic tips and submissions since the Israeli massacre. Jewish students and professors have been ambushed, harassed, stalked, and physically assaulted. These institutions enable privileged mobs to commit some of the most vicious hate crimes witnessed on American soil since the Civil Rights era, targeting Jews with impunity. While Cornell University and the New School in the Big Apple flunked the survey, accused hotbeds of hate, Columbia University in Manhattan was not rated this time around as the group rotates the schools it examines every year. This year, the Massachusetts Institute of Technology, Brown University, Emerson College, the University of Oregon, University of California, Davis, and the University of Washington joined the group's Hall of Shame and got an F grade. Now, speaking of, oh, look at the waves come in. Thank you. Speaking of Israel, Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu has confirmed in a speech to Israel's parliament that Israel had in fact targeted the Iranian nuclear weapons program in its response to Iran's missile attack last month. The Jerusalem Post, this is good news. The Jerusalem Post reported Monday Israel destroyed a component of Tehran's nuclear program while degrading its defense and missile production capabilities during the IDF's aerial strike on Iran in October, Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu said on Monday, as he pledged to prevent the Islamic Republic from obtaining atomic weapons. Quote, there's a specific component in their nuclear program that was hit in this attack. In a wide-ranging foreign policy speech in which he spoke of these of Iran and its pursuit of nuclear weapons to Israel's multi-front war. He did not identify the component, but added that despite the success of that hit, Iran's path to a nuclear weapon has not yet been blocked. So there's an update from a topic that we bring to you quite frequently on this program. Now, we're going to talk about quite a bit here about Trump. We also have a few things here about New York, Pennsylvania, and we're also going to be talking a little bit about Trump's nominations. Matt Gaetz, boy, the attacks are out on Matt Gaetz. Do you, and I haven't really posed any questions lately, do you think Gaetz will be confirmed? I have my doubts, but I don't know, still going full steam ahead. You also have, of course, Robert F. Kennedy Jr., who was at the fights with Trump on Saturday. Robert F. Kennedy Jr., that's another one. And some people are even saying Tulsi Gabbard might be a tough pick, and Pete Hegseth might be a tough confirmation process. I'm a little confused by that, but I'd love to hear your thoughts on that. What do you think of the media destroying themselves? We've talked about that all morning long as well. So we'll cover A lot of things. The next thing we're going to just quickly bring up when we come back is, and I'm not a big fan of his, but Piers Morgan has an interesting piece out in the New York Post that we're going to get to. Then we're going to dive into the numbers in New York State because we have kind of new updates on the inroads that Trump made there. We're also going to talk about Pennsylvania's Democrat Governor Josh Shapiro and that recount when it comes to the Senate race. Or as the New York Post puts it, Pennsylvania Democrats show their true disdain for democracy in that Bob Casey, Dave McCormick race. So this is for all our Pennsylvania friends and just in general as we talk about controlling the Senate. All right, let's take our first break of hour number 2. Stay with us. This is Frankly Speaking here on WYDC TV, Big Fox.
Wow, you found it.
I did.
The History of Water Part 6? I've been dying to read this.
I know, honey.
I always wanted that book.
At Culligan, we get that most people don't think about water like we do, and that's okay. You see, when we install one of our high-efficiency water softeners, we're thinking about hard water and limescale buildup, so you can just think about longer-lasting appliances and softer skin and hair. At Culligan, we think about your water, so you don't have to.
Call today to schedule your free water test.
Introducing a brand new kitchen appliance that does all the work for you. A hassle-free solution that sears food, stirs it, even shreds it in one pot that you can set, then forget about, and come back to delicious, perfectly prepared meals that cook up to 60% faster without having to do a thing, except enjoy a little extra free time. From the trusted brand Power Excel, there's the StirMax Multi-Cooker, the revolutionary new countertop appliance with a built-in auto stirrer that gives you the freedom of adding your favorite ingredients and walking away. No more stirring food. StirMax is the one-pot solution that does everything for you. The secret is the unique pot shape and groundbreaking StirMax technology that's automatically programmed to rotate the paddle clockwise, then counterclockwise to help prevent jams and food from burning while infusing flavor. Powerful enough to even shred food. With large 7.5 quart capacity and lightweight, attractive design, the entire pan goes right to the table. StirMax features 9 different cooking functions: saute, slow cook, cook stews or soups, keep warm, steam and boil, cook risotto or rice. Plus, the multi-step smart presets, StirMax or BraiseMax, that sears and sautés food before automatically switching to simmer. With premium ceramic coating that's BPA, PFOA, and PTFE free, scratch-proof, and won't ever stick. Then the entire pan goes right into the dishwasher. Now, you can try the Power Excel StirMax Multi-Cooker with tempered glass lid and recipe guide in your home for 30 days for just $14.99. But it gets even better. You also get the entire bonus package absolutely free. You get the steamer and rice basket. For fresh, healthy meals, the StirMax serving spoon and ladle. It snaps right on top of your StirMax, plus $100 in free grocery coupons. We'll even ship your order next business day absolutely free. Plus, every StirMax comes with a 1-year ironclad VIP protection plan and a 90-day money-back guarantee. This is an exclusive TV-only offer, so order.
The Frankly Speaking Roof Cam brought to you by Boss Security in Horseheads. Contact Boss Security for all your business and home security needs. Welcome back as we broadcast live from the Hesselson studio. Let's go to some viewer comments. Cornell does have a New York City campus. I did not know that. Thank you very much. I didn't know that. So that makes sense. Another comment from a different viewer. An observation that displays the hypocrisy of the Democrats. Russia invaded Ukraine. The Democrats support Ukraine. Hamas attacks Israel. The Democrats support Hamas. Is it obvious that Democrats are as unpredictable as a tornado, to put it politely? Thank you very much. I mentioned this quickly with Piers Morgan. He wrote an op-ed for the New York Post. And I'm not a huge Piers Morgan fan, but he said at first it was funny watching the woke brigade predictably lose its collective, we'll say, mind over Donald Trump's stunning comeback win. It made me laugh out loud. Not because they're always telling us what a terrible loser he is, but now 2 weeks later, these incessantly wailing, whiny wokesters have become a constant irritant to my eyes, my ears, and my intestines. And in the words of network movie star Peter Finch, I'm mad as heck, and I'm not going to take this anymore. It started with the howling. Video after video of historic, mainly female Democrat voters literally shrieking dementedly into their phone cameras and posting their tormented anguish to the world. And I remember this was a common I think it was when Ruth Bader Ginsburg died. Everybody felt the need to show a picture of themselves crying. And it became almost just a social media fad. Same sort of thing happening here. Then they started shaving their hair off, borrowing from the radical feminist 4B movement originating in South Korea. And then it goes on and on. And I'll continue here. Then came the liberal exodus from Elon Musk's X, led by author Stephen King, who declared, quote, "I'm leaving Twitter, tried to stay, but the atmosphere has just become too toxic." At which point I heard another piercing howl as irony died. The same Mr. King has been one of the foremost contributors to that toxic atmosphere for years, spewing his hateful bile at anyone who disagrees with his self-righteous worldview. He was soon followed by the red carpet of Hollywood's most ardent Trump bashers, like Barbara Streisand, Jamie Lee Curtis, Alyssa Milano, and Bette Midler, and longtime Trump-loathing media types like Don Lemon. In the UK, the boycott has been even more amusing, with the left-wing Guardian newspaper quitting X after offering therapy counseling to staff traumatized by Trump's win. It goes on with other places that have quit X and all that. That doesn't really matter. But the source of this hysteria and delusion has been the mainstream media. Dr. Drew said on Sean Hannity, the American public has been propagandized to the point that they have literally become mentally ill. And the thing about delusion is that it can't be reasoned with. We have been through a stage of delusion that started with the first Trump presidency and was put into absolute orbit with COVID. These people have had their brains fried by 8 years of 3 very damaging medical conditions: Trump derangement syndrome and 2 viruses, coronavirus and what Elon Musk calls the woke mind virus. And it sent them utterly stark, raving bonkers. I realized this when I watched MSNBC resident basket case, Joy Reid, interviewing a Yale University psychiatrist who solemnly advised viewers whose family members voted for Trump to snub them over the upcoming holidays. And we talked about that extensively on the program. And that's why I'm just reiterating kind of what we've been covering here with what Piers Morgan had to say. As Reid nodded along enthusiastically to this crazed shrink's outlandish claptrap, I realized she couldn't help herself. The madness is now too deep. And equally demented Democratic politicians are showing no signs of learning a single lesson from the election. Illinois Governor J.B. Pritzker has vowed to keep his state open to transgender treatment for minors and for gender-affirming trans athletes to compete in women's sports and be able to use girls' and women's bathrooms. This despite the revelation the Republicans' most effective campaign ad was the one that proclaimed commas for they, them, Trump is for you. They just don't get it. As the election results showed, Americans across the entire spectrum of race, gender, and creed have had enough of all this woke garbage. And they're more than toddler tantrum throwing liberals gnash their teeth, stamp their feet, shave their hair, dump the Republican men, and scream into social media cyberspace about Trump since he delivered such a resounding repudiation of everything they stand for. The more ridiculous and irrelevant they sound. I'm not laughing at them now, says Piers Morgan. I pity them. And when he mentions that inroad that was made, I keep using that term this morning, but made across race, gender, and creed, in deep blue New York, as it is so frequently called, deep blue New York and New Jersey, they saw double-digit swings towards Trump, leading the way nationwide. This is really interesting. Some have even started to speculate if New Jersey could technically become a swing state. Now, remember, Trump did have, 2 rallies, or was it 3 in New York, but not actively campaigning in New York. I know many of you contacted me because you're upset you couldn't even get signs, right? So obviously not actively campaigning in New York, and look how good he ended up doing. And this is why, and we've had this story already, why Democrats are concerned about 2026 in the race with Governor Hochul, that a good Republican has a real opportunity to defeat her, running on, like we talked about earlier, public safety, after we saw that knife-wielding lunatic kill 3 people in New York City after being released from jail and having a lengthy criminal record. Public safety, right at the top. So will we be able to get a candidate as Republicans that can defeat Governor Hochul? Well, many in the Democrat Party are concerned. Hochul not popular, even amongst her own party, and Republicans seeming to be more popular in New York State, not than ever, but than in recent memory. Deep blue New York and New Jersey saw the largest shifts nationwide toward President-elect Donald Trump in the 2024 election. Dave Wasserman, a senior editor and elections analyst with a nonpartisan Cook Political Report, found an 11.5% swing towards Trump in the Empire State and a similarly impressive 10.1% movement in the Republicans' favor in the Garden State. Wow. So an 11.5% swing towards Trump in New York. This is the exact inroads that we need to make. And we can tell you the other top 10, but I don't think it's necessary. A Republican presidential candidate hasn't won the Democrat stronghold of New Jersey since 1988. It's been even longer in New York, where the last Republican to win was Ronald Reagan in his 1984 landslide over Walter Mondale. The New Jersey GOP tweeted out, New Jersey has become a swing state. Garden State GOP chairman Bob Hugin credits Trump's support for working class voters with the party's inroads in the reliably blue state. The Democrats have abandoned them, and it's our opportunity to govern now, Hugin told the New Jersey Monitor. Meanwhile, Ed Cox is the Republican chairman of New York State. It was Nick Langworthy, our now congressman, for a short period of time, and then he decided to run for Congress, and Ed Cox took back over. So Ed Cox, Nick Langworthy, Ed Cox. Ed Cox, perhaps best known for being Richard Nixon's stepson. Son-in-law. He credited Trump with redefining, quote, what it means to be a Republican in the 21st century and expand the party's appeal across demographic lines. Under President-elect Donald Trump's leadership, Republicans have broadened our coalition and brought a once-in-a-lifetime shift in our voter base, drawing in working-class Americans, voters of color, and younger citizens disillusioned with the status quo. He wrote this in an essay for Newsday. New York may be a blue state, but it's a working-class blue state, not a progressive, woke blue state. This is a state where working families want safe neighborhoods, affordable housing, good schools, and economic opportunity. They're not interested in the ideological experiments coming from Albany and Washington. While Democrats are pushing radical policies and government overreach, from gender ideology and kids' sports to banning gas stoves, New Yorkers are concerned about the dual crisis of inflation and illegal immigration. Now, Trump did make a play, kind of, for both New York and New Jersey on the campaign trail. He held a massive rally in New Jersey, if you remember that, a crowd between 80 and 100,000 people. Trump also had rallies in South Bronx and Madison Square Garden in Midtown Manhattan. So there's an update. As those that are so discouraged by the politics of New York, we are making major headway, and we'll see what that means for 2026 as the governor's race starts to unfold. Now, for our friends, how am I doing? Oh, I'm not doing good on time. For our friends in Pennsylvania, we got an update for you in just a little bit, so stay with us. We got to take a short break. This is Frankly Speaking here on WYDC TV, Big Fox.
Today's top story, increasing fuel costs continue to drive up inflation, making it harder to afford everything from food to home heating.
Here at Hustlesons, we know the only way to beat inflation is to fight inflation. So we're fighting back with zero interest financing and big cash rebates. Get a 4-person hot tub for your family for as little as $100 per month and pay zero interest. Or save up to $3,000 on a fabulous salt system hot tub. And of course, you will always get Hustlesons' unbelievable service. Don't let inflation fears kill your dreams. Fight back with Hustlesons. Remember, it's always fun to poke in the corners at Hustlesons.
How many times have you tried to clean a stubborn mess but end up with no success? What you need is the all-new waterproof Ruby Horsepower, the new cordless and rechargeable power scrubber that cleans faster and easier, guaranteed. Watch, baked on oven grease is no match. It easily blasts away dirt and grime in no time. The power comes from our rotating brushes spinning at 350 RPM. The incredible torque fights calcium, soap, mildew, mold, and more. Forget harsh chemicals. With just plain water, Horsepower can clean bathroom tiles and tubs back to their original shine and luster. It's a game changer in the kitchen, where it busts through caked-on crud. Take it outside and tackle tough tasks with ease. How strong is Horsepower? We took this distressed 100-year-old antique and restored it to like new with Horsepower. Amazing! Get your Ruby horsepower scrubber today with bonus scouring sponge for just $39.99. Save on buying batteries. It's powered with the latest rechargeable technology. But wait, you'll also get this stainless steel brush to make range hoods and gas stoves look brand new again. Yours free. And we're not done. You'll get this Smart Flex cone brush that fits perfectly into corners, tiny crevices on toilets and tiles, or hard to reach shower door rails. Yours free. And to top it off, we'll include this microfiber cloth to clean delicate surfaces and polish cars sparkling clean. It's also free. Great news! Horsepower is now in stock and ready to ship, but due to high demand, there is a strict limit of 2 per order. Order now.
Call 1-800-980-4241. That's 1-800-980-4241 or visit horsepowerscrubber.com. So call 1-800-980-4241 now.
Thank you again to Boss Security and Horseheads. Contact them today for all your business and home security needs. Welcome back to Frankly Speaking as we broadcast live from the Hesselson studio. I'm your host, Frank Acom. Question from a viewer: is there any additional news worth reporting about Proposition 1? Not that I'm familiar with, unfortunately. We will talk. I'll get something booked here soon with Assemblyman Phil Palmisano. Maybe talk to him about it next time that we have Assemblyman-elect on the show. Joe Sempolinski will ask him as well. To your question, has it been challenged yet? I don't have any updates on that. I have not heard of it being challenged, but that does not mean it hasn't been. I've been trying to keep an eye on Empire Report and other New York State-centric news sites for that, and have not seen any update on it because maybe it's too soon since election. Maybe not much has been done with lawsuits and the like. Now, for our friends in Pennsylvania, the Pennsylvania governor, Josh Shapiro, who was once considered to really be on the short list, probably was going to be Harris's vice presidential pick. There's two different mindsets with that. Either she did not pick him because he was Jewish, and at the time there was a problem with still is, with the anti-Semitism. And then there is the other side that said he didn't want it because he saw jumping on a sinking ship won't be good for his future, and if she were to lose, which she ultimately did, he just has to sit it out for 4 years, and he will be a front runner. He'll be a favorite. But I'll continue. He is siding with the state's high court after the justices ruled that faulty mail-in ballots can't be counted amid a contentious recount, delivering a victory to Republican Party officials. The state Supreme Court reaffirmed its prior decision in a 4-3 ruling Monday that counties cannot count incorrectly dated or undated ballots. The decision singled out the Board of Elections in Bucks County, Montgomery County, and Philadelphia County, whom they said shall comply with a prior ruling of this court in which we have clarified for mail-in and absentee ballots in their November 1st ruling. Any insinuation that our laws can be ignored or do not matter is irresponsible and does damage to faith in our electoral process, said Shapiro. The rule of law matters in Pennsylvania. It is critical for counties and both parties to respect it with both their rhetoric and their actions. As governor, Shapiro said he would continue working to protect our democracy and the votes of all eligible Pennsylvanians. The High Court initially ruled on November 1st that mail-in ballots without formally required signatures or dates should not be counted. Democrat-led election boards, however, including in Philadelphia, Bucks, Montgomery, and Center County, balked at that ruling and voted to include such ballots in the recount. Imagine that. Improperly dated, not dated at all, basically faulty votes. They ruled that we want to count that anyway. Monday's ruling came amid a slew of lawsuits filed by Republican Party officials in the midst of an aggressive Senate recount effort. Democrat Bucks County Commissioner Diane Ellis Marcelli said people violate laws anytime they want. So for me, if I violate this law, it's because I want a court to pay attention. There's nothing more important than counting votes. That's an interesting position to take. Now, McCormick had defeated Casey by some 17,000 ballots in the state, or within the 0.5% margin of error. A narrow victory allowed Casey to qualify for an automatic recount under Pennsylvania law. The Republican National Committee criticized Shapiro for not speaking up sooner, saying, "Heartening to see. Once Democrats came to the conclusion that even ignoring the Pennsylvania Supreme Court can't scrape up enough ballots to win. Governor Shapiro suddenly discovers that he stands with the rule of law. Better late than never." And the New York Post editorial board I thought had a very good take on what is happening on the ground in Pennsylvania with that very tight, close race. Democrat officials in Pennsylvania are finally saying it out loud. Election denial is an unconscionable, existential threat to democracy, unless a Republican wins, in which case it's fine to ignore the law to overturn it. Commissioners in 4 Pennsylvania counties have been counting ballots disqualified by the state's top court in a bid to overturn the results in the Senate race between Democrat Senator Bob Casey and GOP challenger Dave McCormick. As of Monday, McCormick was still up by tens of thousands of votes. The Associated Press called the race for him last Thursday, yet Casey has refused to concede. And the election boards have been busy trying to save him. No matter that the Keystone State Supreme Court, 5 Democrats, 2 Republicans, incidentally, 5 Democrats and 2 Republicans came up with this, twice ruled before Election Day that ballots are invalid if they lack a correct date on the return envelope. We all know that precedent by a court doesn't matter anymore in this country, and people violate laws anytime they want, said Diane Ellis Marzelli, a Bucks County commissioner. There's nothing more important than counting the votes. Now, Montgomery County's election board chairman, Neil McKeja, insisted the day is immaterial and serves no purpose. In other words, ignore the law and keep counting till you steal the election. Yet mainstream media largely ignored the outrage, with the New York Times treating the ongoing counts as a twist to the election. Happily, the McCormick campaign went back to the High Court, which on Monday issued a shall-comply order to shut down the illegal counting of defective ballots. Will a third time prove the charm for the self-proclaimed Save Democracy Party? Maybe. After days of silence, Governor Josh Shapiro at last weighed in, saying any insinuation that our laws can be ignored or do not matter is irresponsible and does damage to faith in our electoral process. If he has any shame left, Casey will now concede and let the state avoid the expense of a pointless recount. The rogue commissioners, meanwhile, better find lawyers. So there's your update from Pennsylvania. Thank you to all of our Pennsylvania viewers out there. Oh, because of the election results, a lot of blame game going around with Hakeem Jeffries now. Hakeem Jeffries seemed to be escaping the heat for a while. A lot of focus was on Nancy Pelosi, of course, and as John Fetterman from Pennsylvania saying she wants to play the godfather or the godmother, but then she wants to blame Biden when he loses, or when Harris lost. She can't have it both ways, but there was a lot of focus on Pelosi and her taking out Joe Biden and putting in Harris and what that ultimately meant for the ticket across the board in the House and the Senate. And it was kind of interesting to see that Hakeem Jeffries was getting no pushback, because that's really his job, was to make sure, and he was pretty confident that they were going to have the majority. Of course, they did not end up with the majority. Now there are more people with the long knives out. Hakeem Jeffries nearly became House Speaker. Instead, according to CNN, he's steering the Democrat Party through an identity crisis and hoping to avoid an ugly intra-party civil war. Even without the gavel, many Democrats across Washington say House Minority Leader Jeffries is about to become the de facto voice of the party's future in the face of resistance to Donald Trump. But Nancy Pelosi's probably going to do that as well. But so far, Jeffries has said little about his role in the party's post-election rebuild. But his allies say he's aware of the part he's about to play, and many are making the case directly to him. Multiple Democrat donors have personally urged him to, quote, take the lead. You are the guy for the entire country right now, said Representative Emanuel Cleaver. I don't think he's ever tried to reach that kind of position, but it's on him. Jeffries is already playing referee in some of the biggest internal spats emerging from the election. The Congressional Hispanic Caucus, for instance, is privately sparring over how the party should handle Trump's promised mass deportations. Progressives are seething over corporate influence in internal meetings. One group of centrists has even privately discussed the contentious term limits proposal aimed at the party's old guard committee leaders, according to 2 people familiar with the conversations. As Jeffrey prepares to be elected leader this week for the second time, one of his most urgent questions will be how to handle another 2 years in the minority, this time in a GOP-run Washington. He and his leadership team are already discussing how to avoid a repeat of 2016, when Democrats chased Donald Trump every hour while failing to deliver their own message. Well, it wasn't just 2016. I'd say it was 2016 till today, and probably continuing. There are even some preliminary talks about sending Jeffries and leadership to battleground turf around the country to help diagnose their party's failings outside of Capitol Hill. I have to go meet with the common people. That goes to show you a little bit of how out of touch they are. There's talk about even going into various counties, getting away from Washington to talk to the real people to see what they missed. the radicalized agenda that they were pushing. How could they be so wrong? Back in Washington, though, even though Democrats will be in the minority, they have a significant role to play in a House with a narrow Republican majority, where GOP infighting over the last 2 years led to one of the least productive sessions ever. In the last Congress, Democrats repeatedly helped Republicans keep the government open and propped up Speaker Mike Johnson when he faced a challenge to his leadership. In a new era under a Trump administration with Republicans in control of both chambers of Congress, Democrats are weighing whether they want to continue to extend the lifeline, with many expressing their ideas to Jeffries directly. Representative Rosa DeLauro said, "We have to take a long, hard look at what our leverage is." Interesting. So Hakeem Jeffries no longer staying safe from the blame game that is out in full force. Hakeem Jeffries will be the minority leader in the House. It sounds like that vote is coming up soon. We've got a couple of other updates. We're going to talk about Trump's pick with Sean Duffy, as we've talked about earlier, nominated to serve as a Secretary of Transportation. We'll take a look at who's been picked and some of the people that is being speculated that he may be looking at for the few positions that are left open. I'll also ask, do you believe that some of his nominees, and you can point out which ones, will survive the confirmation process? Let me know. But right now, we got to take a break. Stay with us. This is Frankly Speaking here on WYDC TV. Big Fox will be right back.
Have you been unable to work for over a year due to a mental or physical disability?
Were you recently denied Social Security disability benefits? Great news. You may be eligible for money, back pay, relief.
If you've been pre-qualified and diagnosed with a recognized condition that prohibits you from working, our lawyers can file a claim to get your disability benefit.
Call us today and find out more.
Call now, 844-617-0440.
Oh, better tasting is better for the planet.
That's great, sir. Can I take your order?
Oh, number 3.
At Culligan, we get that most people don't think about water like we do, and that's okay. You see, when we install our drinking water and softening systems, we're thinking about filtering contaminants and the minerals that make water hard. So you can just think about softer, cleaner, better tasting water. At Culligan, we think about your water, so you don't have to.
Call today to schedule your free water test.
When we have the food we need, we are at our best. We push further. We rise higher. We unlock our full potential. When we are at our best, we have more to offer the world around us. When we have the food we need, we make our communities stronger. Together, we can help everyone get the food they need to thrive. Join the movement to end hunger at feedingamerica.org/actnow.
It's a new season of sharing.
Having a good time has always been my #1 goal. I tend to get crazy. At my age, I should not be jumping up and down like that. And if you don't know what I mean, ask your mama. The young ones, y'all like, we don't know what you're talking about. But I promise you, in 30 years, you will.
It's the best time in daytime.
Weekdays at 2 p.m. on Big Fox.
Boss Security in Horseheads. Contact them today for all your business and home security needs. Our view of historic Marcus Street as we broadcast live from the Hesselson studio on that street. A couple comments from viewers. When they say they are willing to cheat in order not to lose power, which is what that election commissioner said, doesn't that show why elections have been reported as being manipulated? There is no way to defend saying that they will cheat to win, as much as saying they have no idea why people think cheating is going on. Yes, very good point. Thank you very much. Comment from a different viewer. Not to defend Pelosi, but she may have saved Biden's integrity, because I don't think Biden would have won the election given how his administration and comrades had ruined the country. I agree that Pelosi took him out, and at the end of the day, I think the results would have been the same as they were with Harris. But it does raise that interesting conversation that could they have won with Biden? You don't know. There's no way to relitigate it. There's no way to go back. But that's something that he can always hang his hat on. And that's why we said, and I know Joe Rogan was laughing about it as well, that when Biden met with Trump, open arms at the White House, and was laughing and had a smile, and even when he gave that speech after Harris gave her concession speech, same thing. He was joking about his staff being there and his granddaughter in the crowd, et cetera, et cetera. He definitely seems happy. He seems jovial. He seems jolly. So in his mind, and I would love to know if he ever did this. I doubt he would. But to call Pelosi and say, see, I told you so. Because in his mind, you've got to remember, he is the only Democrat that beat Trump. So he is the only one with that proven record. And he believes, and his family around him, as you are surrounded by yes men, his family around him believe that he could have won re-election. So now it's a see, I told you so scenario for Joe Biden. So to your point, I don't, that's why Pelosi's throwing blame at him now, saying we should have got out earlier after they propped him up to make sure that he wouldn't leave. And then she performs the coup and then says, we should have got out earlier. It really shows you politics in a nutshell, doesn't it? The sliminess of politics. But anyway, I think Joe Biden's legacy, at least the Democrats, should be now that his legacy originally was that he beat Trump, right? That was, anything else he did was just, in their mind, bonus. The infrastructure bill, all that bonus. Not just infrastructure bill, but the inflation bill as well, just bonus. But the main part of his legacy is that he defeated Donald Trump, and yet they take him out the second time to not allow him that opportunity to beat him again. So in his legacy, he did what he was supposed to do, and they ousted him. So the real blame is on Pelosi, and I didn't mean to go on that tangent for so long, but I appreciate the comment from the viewer. By the way, this is an update from a story we brought to you, I believe, last week. We had learned that Kamala Harris paid quite a lot of money to Reverend Al Sharpton right before their interview on MSNBC, paying $250,000 twice, donations to his nonprofit organization in September, October. So $250,000 in September, $250,000 in October. And then Sharpton had that kind of a softball interview with her on MSNBC right after those donations. We also learned that the campaign gave $350,000 to New Vision Media on September 9th. New Vision Media is a media company run by journalist Roland Martin. Martin spent roughly 30 minutes interviewing Harris on a streaming program in October. The former CNN contributor told The Times the payment was for advertising. It should have been a heck of a lot more. More should have been spent on black-owned media, Roland Martin said. According to the Free Beacon, the Harris campaign gave $5.4 million to black and Latino advocacy groups in her effort to add more of those voters to her coalition. News of these expenditures comes as Harris's campaign faces increased scrutiny over its $1.5 billion spending spree during her short presidential campaign. The Times report also found the star-studded election eve rallies cost the campaign over $10 million. While the singers were not paid, the support staff was. The campaign also made two $500,000 payments to Oprah Winfrey's Harpo Productions on October 15th. We also learned that it could be a little bit of money. The full price of the event for Winfrey was closer to $2.5 million. Just more on the campaign and more on what was being spent. So Trump did pick Fox News contributor and former Congressman Sean Duffy for Transportation Secretary. The choice of Duffy is the second time Trump has raided the Fox News talent stable to help staff his administration. Duffy, a former prosecutor who represented the Badger State's 7th District for more than 8 years, is a Fox News contributor and co-hosting the evening Fox Business Network program, The Bottom Line. His wife, Rachel Campos Duffy, co-hosts Fox and Friends Weekends. On the program, Duffy has been critical of current Transportation Secretary Pete Buttigieg, including for the air travel chaos that unfolded under his watch back in 2022. Admired across the aisle. Well, no, you know what? Let's do that. Let's see what Trump had to say about it. Donald J. Trump releasing an official statement. And if you're not part of his, and I don't know if this is just the media emails that I get because I'm on his media email list, or if this is just the update in general, but it's been interesting to see his announcements for various positions come through your email. Sometimes it's a little nerve-wracking, but in this case, I am pleased to announce that former Congressman Sean Duffy from the great state of Wisconsin is nominated to serve as the Secretary of Transportation. Sean has been a tremendous and well-liked public servant. starting his career as a district attorney for Ashland, Wisconsin, and later elected to the U.S. House of Representatives for Wisconsin's 7th Congressional District. During his time in Congress, Sean was a respected voice and communicator in the Republican conference, advocating for fiscal responsibility, economic growth, and rural development. Admired across the aisle, Sean worked with Democrats to clear extensive legislative hurdles to build the largest road and bridge project in Minnesota history. As a member of the House Financial Services Committee, Sean played a key role in shaping and strengthening economic policies, ensuring transparency and accountability in government programs. Sean's leadership extended to championing the needs of families, farmers, and small businesses, especially in rural communities. He will prioritize excellence, competence, competitiveness, and beauty when rebuilding America's highways, tunnels, bridges, and airports. He will ensure our ports and dams serve our economy without compromising our national security. And he will make our skies safe again by eliminating DEI for pilots and air traffic controllers. The husband of a wonderful woman, Rachel Campos Duffy, a star on Fox News, and the father of 9 incredible children, Sean knows how important it is for families to be able to travel safely and with peace of mind. Sean will use his experience and the relationships he has built over many years in Congress to maintain and rebuild our nation's infrastructure and fulfill our mission of ushering the golden age of travel, focusing on safety, efficiency, and innovation. Importantly, he will greatly elevate the travel experience for all Americans. On that note, let's take a short break. Stay with us. This is Frankly Speaking here on WYDC TV, Big Fox.
Hi, I'm Suzanne. Welcome to Pangea Global Tea House.
Pangea Global Tea House offers comfort foods of the world. Over 50 teas, a sampling of cuisine from over 10 countries. Globally inspired cuisine and striving to give you an ultimate experience. Come in and try the frankly delicious Turkey Club special for just $20, including your beverage of choice. Pangea Global Tea House. Yet a really good tea house bringing you the flavors of the world, offering something for everyone.
Hey, boss. Okay?
Yeah, I'm good.
You sure?
I said I'm fine.
Since I was little, it was only like me and my parents.
You think you created family out of characters?
Yeah, of course.
I'm gonna take that, make it into a song.
Put me to bed, see you in the morning. With the frosted Superman, but it wasn't on it. And we lost it. In my head, in my head, in my head. Where you at, on the way out. In my head, in my head, in my head.
Hey, son.
Hey, Pop.
You can talk to me.
It's been really, really hard for me.
Frankly Speaking Roof Cam brought to you by Boss Security in Horseheads. Contact Boss Security for all your business and home security needs. We are back with Frankly Speaking, broadcasting live from the Hesselson studio here on Market Street in Corning. So we're not going to go through the list of everyone Trump has picked for his administration so far. You are familiar with that. But they do have, coming from, I believe this is the New York Post this morning, some rumored upcoming picks with some interesting names. And these are just rumored, folks. But the seem, and let's face it, with what we've seen so far, it could be from out of nowhere. You don't know who he's going to pick. But Secretary of Treasury, maybe Howard Lutnick. Secretary of Treasury, Scott Bessent. Trying to figure out who's leading there. For Commerce Secretary, Linda McMahon. I believe ex-wife to Vince McMahon from World Wrestling fame. Labor Secretary Brandon Williams, and again, these are all just rumors. Labor Secretary Eugene Scalia, so those are two that are in the running. Housing and Urban Development Bill Pulte. This one's interesting. Education Secretary Byron Donalds. Byron Donalds becoming a star in his own right. Some, again, speculating that he may even be a VP nod back at the time. Ultimately not getting that nod, but still a really interesting pick. Russ Voigt, Office of Management and Budget. United States Trade Representative Robert Leisinger. And finally, an agricultural Thomas Massey. Now, it's interesting that Dr. Carson's name is not being thrown around, but I know that he did not, I had read, he was not interested in taking back his role in HUD, Housing and Urban Development, that he wanted to be in charge of Health and Human Services. But that went to, the nomination process, it went to Robert F. Kennedy Jr. Now, Trump escalates the test of strength over the Matt Gaetz pick, according to Stephen Collinson of CNN. Donald Trump is creating a show of force that will help define his new term as he tries to leverage Matt Gaetz into the Attorney General's office. The president-elect has been calling senators to press them, to confirm his picks early next year. Even as counter-pressure grows from GOP senators who want to see a House Ethics Committee report into Gaetz' past conduct, including over an alleged sexual liaison with a minor that he has denied. I'm not going to go through all that controversy. You can find that at every outlet. That's where their main focus, laser-like, on Matt Gaetz. Now, GOP senators could pay a price for prolonged confirmation fight, and that goes in line with what a viewer had to say earlier, that they better do this fast. If Trump sticks with his pick, Republican senators, feeling the MAGA movement's pressure, could be forced to defend Gaetz for weeks. That could land them in a tricky spot. Despite the threat, the senators could face primaries if they break with the president-elect. Votes for a compromised nominee could also haunt those seeking re-election in a statewide race. Anyway, now they are saying that the House Ethics Committee is setting the stage to defy Speaker Johnson and release the Matt Gaetz report. House Ethics Committee Chairman Michael Guest, a Republican, signaled his committee is likely to ignore Speaker Johnson's recommendation to withhold releasing an investigation of Matt Gaetz. I appreciate Mike reaching out, Guest told Politico. I don't see it having an impact on what we as a committee ultimately decide. The committee meets Wednesday, where it is expected to discuss whether or not to release its report on Gaetz. The Ethics Committee, which lacking a legislative jurisdiction, provides its members no capability to extract campaign funds from the donor class, is not highly sought after by members of Congress, and is generally seen as a chore. Its members usually serve by request of their party's respective leader and are usually appointed for their loyalty to leadership, often in exchange for other favors quietly bestowed by leadership. So this is going to be very interesting if they do ultimately decide to release that. We're going to go through some things very quickly on the way out the door because it's already time to wrap things up. Got one break left, and then we are going to breeze through some more of the issues of the day. Get your last-minute comments in so I can read them before we wrap up the program. We'll be right back with Frankly Speaking here on WYDC TV. Big Fox, please stay with us.
If you or a loved one regularly used hair relaxers or straighteners and were diagnosed with uterine, ovarian, or endometrial cancer, you may be entitled to significant financial compensation.
I've used hair relaxers for years. I had no idea they could cause cancer.
Chemical hair relaxers and straighteners have been linked to serious conditions, including several types of cancer. If you used hair relaxers and have been diagnosed with uterine, ovarian, or endometrial cancer, call us now. There's no fee unless we win your case. Call today.
Why it's hard to stop a train? It's how we've invented products that reinvented our world. It's how we test as hard as the elements do. It's how we run.
Aaron's Heating and Air Conditioning in Corning, New York is a local, veteran-owned and operated company with over 25 years experience. From service and repair to new installations, trust the experts at Aaron's Heating and Air Conditioning.
The Big Fox website is here now. WYDCTV.com. Local and national news that keeps you informed and involved. WYDCTV.com. Today's weather, up to date and in your town. WYDCTV.com. Sports news, local events, and health stories that affect you. WYDCTV.com. The Big Fox website. Your news here now. WYDCTV.com.
Wrapping up today's edition of Frankly Speaking, broadcasting live from the Hesselson's studio here on Marcus Street in Corning. Again, thank you for joining us on today's broadcast. Okay, DOGE, which is the Department of Government Efficiency, which is led by Elon Musk and Vivek Ramaswamy, giving you a little insight into where their mind is at. They shared a clip of Senator Rand Paul, and you might be aware of this. Each year, Rand Paul puts together wasteful spending and highlights it around the holiday season for Festivus, okay? And they share that clip showing some of the highlights of government inefficiency, of waste of money. The U.S. government spent about $100,000 to see if sunfish were more aggressive with gin or tequila. They spent nearly $1 million on a study to see if cocaine makes Japanese quail more, quote, sexually promiscuous, end quote. Listen to this. The U.S. government also spent $750,000 to determine if Neil Armstrong's famed line was actually one small step for man or one small step for a man. Doge pointed out that the study was inconclusive. It continued $2 million on the construction of a kelp and shellfish nursery in Maine, $1.5 million to encourage video gaming in New York. As Paul said, we may be better off spending $1.5 million to discourage kids from playing video games. The list goes on and on. So maybe a little look into, maybe just a little look into the mindset of Vivek and Elon Musk. Oh, I forgot to read comments. I'm sorry. Another vote. Any voter fraud must be prosecuted to the fullest. Thank you. Thanks, Ken. Ken says, I submitted your name to Donald Trump to consider removing funding from NPR and start funding the all-new, Frankly Speaking, National Radio Network. Thanks, Ken. I appreciate that. Let me know what he says. Trump did say that he has an obligation to be open and available to the press, and then insisted he's not looking for retribution. I'm not looking for retribution, grandstanding, or to destroy people who treated me very unfairly or even badly beyond comprehension, he wrote. I'm always looking to give a second and third, even third chance, but never willing to give a fourth chance. That is where I hold the line. However, the 45th and soon-to-be 47th president warned that his openness will end if he is not treated fairly by the press corps. Trump's first 4 years in the White House were marked by fierce battles with left-of-center journalists like Jim Acosta, who made it that's what he wanted. He wanted to make it his career. Trump also confirmed his plans to use the military to deport migrants after declaring a national emergency. Good news, he tweeted. Reports are the incoming real Donald Trump administration prepared to declare a national emergency and will use military assets to reverse the Biden invasion through a mass deportation program. Trump has vowed to enact the largest deportation in history, starting when he takes the oath of office on January the 20th. Any attempt to use active duty troops would be subject to legal challenges, but nothing he hasn't dealt with before. Oh, by the way, just a couple of quick things. Senate GOP initiates a Thune engineer. Now, he's going to be, most likely, John Thune is going to be the majority leader, not Chuck Schumer, John Thune. He engineered a slowdown because Chuck Schumer is looking to stack judicial votes. Two sources familiar told Fox News Digital that the plan to slow down the Senate was spearheaded by Senate Minority Whip John Thune, who was recently elected as the next Republican Senate leader. If Senator Schumer thought Senate Republicans would roll over and allow him to quickly confirm multiple Biden-appointed judges to lifetime jobs in the final weeks of the Democrat majority, he thought wrong. Thune said. That is it for today's edition of Frankly Speaking. Thank you to everybody who joined us. Make sure you join us every weekday morning starting at 6 a.m. for Frankly Speaking, only on WYDC TV Big Fox. We will see you tomorrow morning bright and early. I look forward to it already. Have a great day, everyone, and we will see you tomorrow.
I'm Marion Crawford. I've lived here for 70 years, but I do fine right here in my house, and I want to be here as long as I can be. And I feel comfortable knowing that if something happened to me, someone would know because of the cameras that are installed in various spots in my home. That has been a wonderful gift to me to be able to have that security and that support from Full Circle America, and that's what it's all about.
I had them both pumped and I was like, oh shit,
It was. I put the one up on top of the thing and I pulled the one out towards the middle of the room.
Yeah.
I'm like, yeah, no.
Yeah, because when they were both in the same room, that's when I knew it was going to be bad.
So I'm glad that they did their job.
Good morning. Yeah, they seemed broken. That made me nervous, but I didn't notice it until I heard it. I said, the noise.
Yeah.
And it was like, oh, it was bad. Yeah, that was great. I didn't shut it up right before I showed it. But it was fine by then. So it turns out I put on pants today that I don't even work. It was and I got to run home because there was a whole. I know you're poor carrying size. That's why I'm wearing my coat right now. So I didn't even know it. And I'm like, kind of like cold or something. I'm like, because the khakis I can wear. Yeah. But these are the work ones. So I use the yard, as you can see what I'm saying. Why I ever hung them up, I probably wasn't paying attention. So it's a little bad. So I will be back. Just maybe a little bit longer. Maybe about 5 minutes. So I think it's better than me getting arrested.